This morning, just days after an armed rebellion, Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke in Moscow's Cathedral Square, praising his country's security forces for stopping what he called.
God, he's such an international socialist, dude. He's so sick. He's really, yeah. We're pushing Z out here. You know what I mean? We're pushing Z super hard out here, folks. This is the pro Vladimir Putin broadcast. You know what I mean? It's just. He's pushing Z so fucking hard, okay?
A civil war. Last night, in his first public appearance on TV since the weekend revolt, Putin called the organizers traitors. Ian Lee in Ukraine has more.
The failed mutiny last weekend still hangs heavy over Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Thank you for the 50 gifted subs again.
He lashed out again at Wagner's leadership on state TV last night, saying they would be punished for the rebellion. But he also courted the rank and file, calling many Wagner fighters patriots who were misled and invited them to join the Russian army. The Ministry of Defense announced today that Wagner will now hand over its heavy weapons. Putin's speech last night followed an audio recording from Yevgeny Prigozhin, who has not been seen publicly.
Oh, I saw this conversation. This was insane. I don't know if they actually showed this conversation on TV or if you guys have seen it, but I saw it on Twitter. And it was one of the most insane things I've ever watched, where he just like literally bitches out the fucking leadership. Like, bro, this guy is a catering guy surrounded by like a militia of like, you know, some of the worst Nazi rapists. And he's over here fucking being like, don't talk to me like this. What the fuck? Who are you to talk to me like this? It's crazy. Watch Lukashenko's speech. He's just like Trump talking about how he was calling Putin and Prigozhin back and forth. You haven't been around line cooks and it shows. Bro, it doesn't matter how fucking psycho line cooks are, okay? This is an entirely different level of psycho.
Since Saturday. The Wagner boss denied trying to overthrow Putin, saying his fight was with the country's military leaders, who he accused of failing to win the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, I obviously I personally loved the fucking NATO guys who were like, oh, this is so sick. Like, yeah, this guy's like killing it. You know, go Wagner, go. And like, I feel like he's not a good dude, you know? You were right the first time when you were openly saying, like, well, there's Nazis on the Russian side, and then you would point to the Wagner people. Like, you were right about that. You know what I mean?
Putin tried to mask the uncertainty in the country last night with images that he's firmly in control. He met with his security chiefs, including Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu, and thanked them for their support. State media portrayed a return to business as usual, with scenes of battlefield victories in Ukraine. But Saturday's mutiny showed cracks in Putin's strongman image. Wagner troops quickly seized the city of Rostov and the Russian military southern command, then headed toward Moscow. It took a deal, brokered by the president of Belarus, to stop his deadly advance toward the city. Wagner fighters would be pardoned, and Prigozhin would go into exile in Belarus. Putin also took aim at the West, telling his people that Russia's enemies wanted them to choke on bloody civil strife. On Monday, President Biden distanced the United States from the insurrection.
We gave Putin no excuse to blame this on the West or to blame this on NATO. We made clear that we were not involved. We had nothing to do with it. This was part of a struggle within the Russian system.
U.S. officials tell CBS News another $500 million aid package to Ukraine will be announced today. That'll include Bradley and Stryker armored fighting vehicles.
I don't understand. Western press, does Lukashenko have agency or is he a Putin puppet? Yeah, that's another thing that's like confusing to me because I thought he was also covered as like a Putin puppet. And he does always strike me as a Putin puppet. So I don't know how he's got like his own, you know, he's acting brand new and he's got his own situation going. I don't know. It's such a weird situation. That's all I got for you. That's my analysis. That this is a very fucking weird situation where you had like the fucking Nazi pedophile brigade be like, yeah, we're going to go back. Fuck this. We're going to do the war better. Mr. President, we want to do the war, but better. And your guys, they're not doing it better for us. They're not. They're bombing us. They're not giving us enough weapons. You're putting our guys through the meat grinder. Does anyone have the fucking video? U.S. gathered detailed intelligence on Wagner Chief's rebellion plans, but kept it secret from most allies. U.S. intelligence comes out and says they were on our radar. Damn, we saw rare instances of almost coup the U.S. didn't have a hand in. Wagner gained popularity with Putin precisely because it was plausibly deniable at the beginning. They've lost that appeal, and now they need to be distanced. Oh, is this the video? Oh, here it is. A video surfaced showing Prigozhin at the Southern Military District headquarters humiliating Deputy Defense Minister Yunusbek Yevkurov. Like, you're hurting innocent civilians, which is our thing. Like, you haven't given us ample sledgehammers to kill innocent civilians with, and then you take our kills away. I do not like kill stealing, okay? It's for the love of the game. You do kill steal. It's fucking bullshit. I am not jungler. What are you doing? You don't come and take my kill. You don't give me sledgehammer to do kills, and then you're taking kills. It's fucking bullshit.
Вы только что развалили автобус с людьми. И совести у вас никакой не было от этого. Ну, во-первых, это я первый раз слышу. Я разговариваю. Я с вами на вы разговариваю. Ну, кто вы такой, чтобы со мной на ты разговаривать?
This part is crazy. Who are you to address me informally? Like, how is this guy alive? Dude. If your couple thousand fucking Merc group and the leadership of that Merc group, who happens to be a fucking caterer who was in prison, okay? If that guy can talk to your commanders like this, you're done. What are you doing? How is he alive? How did they not, like, cut his head off? What's going on? Dude, they have fallen off, okay? Russia, the Russian government has fallen off. Where is the nuclear grade plutonium or whatever that, you know, they feed... They feed you a steady diet of through your tea. What happened? What happened? Polonium. Like, a lot of the appeal for people like Vladimir Putin is the charismatic, strongman, macho image that they present. That kind of falls apart when your fucking caterer is talking shit to your generals like this after successfully taking over a city with 1.1 million citizens living in it, and they're like gifting the fucking Wagner people water and alcohol and food and shit, and they're celebrating him. Like, what's happening? Were there no windows that you could drop him out of? Is there not enough fucking... you know, enriched uranium that you could feed this guy? What's happening? It's pretty crazy to me that this is how far the fall off has occurred. He said, "Who am I to talk with you? I'm saying you don't need to address."
Ну,
надо, если вы сам просто на
да, я на вы говорю, да, стой.
Если вы говорите не меня, там, нет. Поэтому, да. Ну, давайте так, все равно думать. Что делать?
You are loving the drama? I do love the drama. That is
Мы
true.
сюда приехали, мы хотим получить начальника генштаба и шейка. Пока их не будет, мы находимся здесь, блокируем город Ростов и идем в Москву.
Да, я вас очень попрошу,
да.
дать свои отсюда вылезти.
Нет, ни в коем случае. Ребята будут находиться здесь.
Нет, ну это уже вот когда сейчас с точки зрения...
Мы вам не мешаем управлять войсками.
Управлять войсками, конечно, не должны мешать никто, потому что там ребята гибнут так же, как и...
Ребята гибнут, потому что вы их на мясо толкаете.
The guy on the right is one of the generals that posted videos calling Prigozhin a traitor and asking him to stop. Now he's pissing his pants next to him. Their body language doesn't match what they're saying next to each other. Man, they're Russian, bro. That's what it is. Okay?
Это вопрос не риторический. Ребята гибнут, потому что вы их заталкиваете на мясо. Без боеприпасов, без мыслей, без каких-либо планов. Просто престарелые клоуны.
Самое большое, что меня огорчает, это что 3 дня минимум. В Киеве был праздник 5 шампанского.
Где?
В Киеве.
Ничего страшного. Праздник в шампанском с Киеве, когда вы бросаете красные лиманы, изюмы и все остальное. Вот тогда праздник по неделе в Киеве. А мы ниоткуда не бежим. И поэтому мы пришли сюда для того, чтобы прекратился позор страны, в которой мы живем.
Если мы говорим о таком...
Это первое.
Вы не начали вот таким
Ну, конечно, да. Послушайте, еще раз. Если бы мы с вами разговаривали в нормальном тоне, мы бы сюда на танках не приехали. Понимаете?
Не встречали бы во время вертолета. Вы считаете, что все, что вы сейчас делаете, это так?
Абсолютно правильно. Мы спасаем Россию.
Да.
I'm so confused by everything. And the more information that comes out, like the more leaks that happen like this, the more I'm like, first of all, why is this fucking filmed? Like, how is this on camera? Like on a fucking phone camera that someone just like shot and then leaked and then posted online. Why is that allowed? None of this shit makes sense to me, okay? It's a podcast. Yeah, dude, these guys are everyone is a fucking podcast nowadays, dude. It's bullshit. It wasn't a leak. Prigozhin wanted this out there. I get why he wanted this out there. I just don't know how these two leaders allowed it to be out there. It does read like, I mean, even the way he's speaking in this one, he's presenting himself again as a strong man, reinforcing that imagery. And 2, it seems like he knows the camera's on. You know when you like try to implicate others in a crime or something, like in movies, when you're on the phone and you're like, yeah, remember when you did that crime or whatever? That's what it feels like, where he's like, yeah, I'm doing this for Russia. I'm doing this because I want to fucking, you know, you're sending the boys out to the meat grinder. It's really fucked up how you're doing that. And these guys have to fucking sit there and be like, yeah, I don't know about that or some shit like that. And I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why they are just, you know, responding the way that they are. This is just, is Fortnite overrated video? Yeah, they're doing it, but is Ukraine overrated? Fuck the Wagner Group. They've been stealing gold from the country of Sudan for years in collaboration with the criminal RSF, who are currently pillaging, murdering, and raping the capital, Khartoum. Fuck the UAE for their support of RAF genocidal warlord. Yeah, I mean, these guys are bad motherfuckers. They're not good at all. They do, like, security in exchange for mineral extraction. And, you know, that's their main play for the most part in Africa is, like, natural resources that they steal in exchange for security. Right? That's their bread and butter. I guess that's kind of what they want to get back to. They're like, this is what we're good at. Cover Biden saying he stole state secret. He sold state secrets. Where is Hunter's wife? Yeah, I saw that. I don't know if you know this, but like your interlocutors or your ideological opponents are capable of making jokes. Or do you genuinely think that he just openly, next to like fucking Modi, was revealing a secret? Like he just, oopsie, just revealed that. It's that situation that I saw that I can't even watch the video of, where it's that thing with like the queer people saying like, we're queer, we're here, and we're coming for your children or whatever. And then like everyone on the timeline was like, oh my God, they're gonna like fuck our children. It's like, that's not what they're saying, man. Like they're satirically pointing to the fucking thing that you were, you know, implying that they're doing. It's like, I knew it. But how can you have a conversation with these people? How can you have a conversation with these people that like are completely incapable of context, nuance? I just don't know. I don't know how to fucking operate like this. Impromptu live stream. We're trying every McDonald's, going live in a sec. Wow. Stolen content. That's not even what they were saying. They're saying they're not shopping or something. I don't even know what the fuck they were saying. I didn't even see the whole thing. But it was very clearly like, if you have 3.5 brain cells, you know that like people aren't doing that already. Like that's not a thing, okay? They're not grooming your fucking children. I can't talk to people right of Charlie critical. There was a single dude who mentioned children. The rest were repeating a chant about shopping from the 80s, 90s. You're asking service to understand satire, nuance, and humor. Yeah, he's not leaving YouTube. He's lying. Have videos about the Unabomber? Not really. A quarter pounder. There's a couple consistencies in Quarter Pounder's life, okay? He claims he's going to quit YouTube when he has no interest in quitting YouTube. And he claims he's going to stop pissing in the basement when he has no interest in doing that either. He loves pissing in his basement, and he loves crying about how he's quitting YouTube. Not going to stop either, okay? He's going to continue YouTube, and he's going to continue pissing in his fucking basement. All right, let's keep going with this.
Equipment that Ukraine desperately needs as it continues to take ground in its counteroffensive. And today we're learning a plane linked to Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin has landed in the Belarus capital of Minsk. No word yet if he was on board. Vlad?
Ian Lee in Ukraine for us. Ian, thank you very much.
He didn't want the Wagner group to get incorporated into the Russian military and keep his private army.
Welcome back to the many unanswered questions about Russia's Wagner group now that its army of mercenaries has apparently ended its revolt against the Russian government. How much support does it really have inside of Russia? And the big question, what's next for its leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who promised to go into exile after building an organization that he thought, anyway, might be able to challenge the Kremlin. Charlie D'Agata has more now on this Russian warlord, homegrown there, Leningrad boy. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. He was a petty thief who eventually came to run a restaurant chain, earning him the nickname of Putin's chef. And yet the past few days, he led an apparent coup attempt in the greatest threat to President Putin's 24-year rule. Yevgeny Prigozhin rose to prominence on the bloodiest battlefields of Ukraine, rallying his Wagner mercenary group to territorial victories where the regular Russian military fell in defeat. most notably in the fiercest fight of the war so far, Bakhmut. But the 62-year-old's shady criminal career began with a 12-year jail term for robbery and assault. He went on to run a string of restaurants in St. Petersburg, where he befriended Vladimir Putin and got the nickname Putin's Chef. Jeff Hahn is a Russian expert at the London School of Economics.
In St. Petersburg in the 90s, where there were open bombings and assassinations, you were not a success.
Bro, what is happening right now? This is the guy they go to? What happened? Do they have no other guy? Our expert dog? This guy, oh my God. He ran a literal hot dog stand. Dude. If anything, this Prigozhin situation teaches us something very important, which is always follow your dreams, okay? Because yesterday's dreams might become tomorrow's memes. You might actually end up, with a fucking army that you plunder Africa with, and then you come back, and then you're fighting in Ukraine, and then you decide, like, there's better ways to do the fighting in Ukraine, and you're now going to do that, and then you decide to, like, march your troops on into Russian borders, and then not die. He ate at all of his restaurants, subject matter expert. This guy's like, I'm the foremost expert on Prigozhin. I've had all of the hot dogs that he had on his stand.
Successful businessman, unless you were able to offer protection or buy protection, and he seems to be someone who was offering protection.
From running crime rackets back then to troll farms now, accused of meddling in the U.S. presidential elections. Prigozhin, the FBI's most wanted since 2018.
I fucking love that. The FBI's most wanted. Bro, I thought the FBI just changes who the most wanted list is for whoever the fuck is in the news. I'm not even kidding at this point. It's like they'll execute some random fucking guy in Afghanistan and go, dude, we got another one. This guy, most wanted. He's the most wanted guy, actually. And it's actually, Prigozhin is the most wanted guy. Also, this guy took down, really? This guy took down the American government? This guy is the reason why Trump is president? Really? That's what you think? Really? This is the guy. It's over. It's over for Russia, and it's even more than it's ever been over for the United States of America. If this fucking guy, okay, if this gremlin is operating troll farms and has successfully rigged the country to vote for Donald Trump, they move up the person up the list right before they get killed, not even by the U.S. 34 MKD50, thank you for the 50 gifted subs again.
His Wagner group of mercenaries has established a reputation for brutality, accused of atrocities around the globe, deployed to Syria to fight alongside the forces of President Bashar al-Assad. As reported by CBS's Deborah Patta, providing security for the president of the Central African Republic in exchange for lucrative gold mining contracts.
The Department of Treasury will be designating Wagner as a significant transnational criminal organization.
Things turn sour in Ukraine between Prigozhin and the Russian military.
The point is, like, this is a cool way for Russia to, like, deny complete culpability, right? While simultaneously have them do all the operations that they normally would do, right? The American government can get away with doing this under JSOC because who the fuck's going to say don't do that to the United States of America? Nobody, right? But if you're Russia, if you're not the biggest player in the room like the United States of America, then you can't, like, actually operate openly under your armed forces and engage in this kind of shit. So you have to use a private mercenary group that is still technically linked back to the government. Or you say that like we didn't lose a 20-year war to the guys in flip-flops. Yeah, but what you fail to recognize there is that that war was very profitable for the military-industrial complex. And that's why we did that. And also, what you fail to recognize, I guess, is that they already have the exact same thing that the Wagner Group is doing. I'm not even talking about Blackwater. I'm talking like they have what they're doing, what the Wagner Group is doing for Russia. Like, the American, what is it, is AFRICOM, right? Like the American intelligence communities are doing in Africa as well, in different parts of Africa. Did you see Will and you synchronize your leg crossing in the Fear M podcast? It lives in my head rent free. Someone timestamped it in the comments.
Military elite in the late spring, calling out the Russian defense minister and a top general of starving his forces of ammunition and equipment, costing the lives of thousands. Now, after squaring off against Putin himself, banished to Belarus, what next for Yevgeny Prigozhin?
People keep saying that he's marked for assassination. There's a very good chance. I don't think it might come from the Kremlin. I think it might come from the Ministry of Defense because he embarrassed them hugely. But then again, he's been marked for assassination since the 90s.
So he's not the kind of character to go into hiding, but he's now a warlord forced into early retirement. Another big question is what becomes of the Wagner Group without its leader in regions like Africa and the Middle East. Gail?
Charlie, everybody always says Vladimir Putin has a very long memory that he never forgets. Don't you think that Prigozhin is always going to have to sleep with one eye open? Doesn't make sense that he can go to Belarus and everything is, okay, all forgiven.
There may have been some guarantees about his security, and, you know, as our guest has said, this guy has been living with a target on his head since the 90s, so he's used to living with assassination threats and attempts over his head.
Yeah, but it's very different when you have assassination threats from, like, enemies versus an assassination threat from your most significant, most important ally in the space. If anything, it's like your proximity to Putin that made it so that those other assassination threats were not that serious. But I don't know. I don't fucking understand it. I literally don't understand it. How is this guy not dead? How is this guy not dead? Russia has fallen off, dude. Okay? Russia fallen off big time. Big L's overall. I mean, major L's.
You have to believe that some sort of deal was brokered that would guarantee his security in Belarus. But again, it may not be the Kremlin, but the generals who come after him because they're the ones he's been bad-mouthing more than anybody.
Yeah, we shall see. It was an extraordinary weekend. Thank you.
People are speculating that, like, Wagner moved troops into Belarus while within striking distance of Kyiv. Earlier, Putin put tactical and nuclear missiles in Belarus. Putin was able to get their moles out through their burrows. Necessary reshuffle and reorganization of the army on. Russian chess game. Is it? Like, I feel like people are like, really? Why did they had to do this kind of move to be able to move those troops over to Belarus? Like, I think that's like opium to the max. Yeah. Putin chess game is getting his caterer, who is seen as like the more far-right, more militant counter to Vladimir Putin's ultranationalism, to embarrass him publicly in like the most embarrassing way, in the most like universally covered way possible. Yeah, it's a real sick 4D chess game, dude. Totally.
Well, we begin with breaking news, and Russia's defense ministry says preparations are underway for Wagner to hand over its military hardware. This follows Vladimir Putin's confirmation that members of the Wagner mercenary force, who he said were mostly true patriots who'd been misled into a criminal adventure, could choose to join the regular military or return to their families, or go to Belarus. At the same time, it was announced that the FSB was dropping all criminal charges against those who participated in the weekend's mutiny, who had been facing prosecution for armed insurrection. Russia's FSB said after investigation, it was established that those involved were no longer carrying out criminal acts. Well, Russia has relied heavily on Wagner mercenaries in its war in Ukraine since 2014, but Wagner's notoriety stretches well beyond Europe and into the Middle East and Africa, where it promotes Russian interests through a combination of influence and violence. Now, the attempted coup by the Wagner Group provides a dilemma for some of Africa's leaders who've grown increasingly dependent on the paramilitary force. But despite the brief mutiny, Russia's keen to maintain.
I also don't understand, like, the level of dependence that they have on Wagner. As far as, like, extracting gold and whatnot in exchange for security operations in Africa, that's one thing. But, like, how necessary they are to Ukraine, I don't know. Did the Wagner Group have anything to do with the Russian bounties on American soldiers? What? No, I don't fucking know. Probably not. What? That was made up. What was made up? Oh, you talking about the bounty story? Yeah, was it fucking made up? I don't know. Very dependent. They were the ones actually progressing in Ukraine. Bro, the smoke from Canada. Okay.
Wagner's presence in Africa.
Отношений с этой ЧВК.
In addition to relations with this private military company, the governments of the Central African Republic and Mali have official contacts with our leadership.
Своего правительства с нашим руководством, по их просьбе несколько сотен.
At their request, several hundred soldiers are working in the Central African Republic as instructors, and this work will continue.
Well, Beverly Ochieng of BBC Monitoring is in Nairobi, and she's been following the Wagner Group activities since they first arrived in Africa 6 years ago during civil unrest in the Central African Republic. It's very good to have you with us. How reliant are parts of Africa on the work of the Wagner mercenaries?
Well, if you're thinking of a country like the Central African Republic, at the moment, it is heavily dependent on the Wagner Group, not just for security, but also to secure government interests, economic interests.
Yeah, this is 4D chess by Erdogan. Fuck, my Chatterino broke. That's what's going on. He's doing it. This is Turkey. Turkey will rise up from the ashes of this, okay?
Within the country. And when you look at Lavrov's statement, it's interesting that he said that the Wagner Group, or at least instructors, will be active both in the CAR and Mali. Mali only just recently deployed Wagner mercenaries. They are facing a long-running jihadist insurgency. The military junta has fallen out with various international partners and are now relying on the Wagner Group to be able to support the army to fight against the insurgents. This is a way of them also restoring their legitimacy, or stamping their legitimacy in the countries which have been ravaged by violence and political unrest over the years. But there are concerns, of course, that this mutiny, even with Lavrov's assurances, could lead to some standoffs between mercenaries in the country who are operating and those who will be registered by the MOD. So there's a bit of uncertainty and anxiety, even though in the short term, Wagner operations might not be interrupted.
And what sort of reaction have we been getting from some of the countries you mentioned, the CAR, for example, following?
Wagner's going back to Africa, extract as much gold as they possibly can so they can gift subs at the top of the hour, and allow those of you who haven't gotten gifted by 34 MKD 50 a gifted sub. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You know, if you haven't gotten gifted a sub yet, that's what you got to do. GG's, okay? Because you're probably not going to get one. There's been thousands of them so far. Here is the 3-minute ad break now. Ooh, last hour is better. Okay, stop. They can all be good. Fuck you guys.
The events of the weekend.
So in the CAR, there wasn't much reaction, either official or media reaction, but of course it was a what and wait. But in Mali, there were reports in the media, the newspapers yesterday, for instance, that talked about how the country should sustain its relations with Russia and how this rebellion will not undermine the cooperation that they've had over the past 1 year plus. But in other countries, of course, there are concerns that if there is a possible standoff between Wagner mercenaries operating and the Kremlin, it could undermine diplomatic relations. At the moment, if you look at even social media activists who have been promoting Russian activity, many of them had stood with the Kremlin line, but it's not very clear if this will stay in the long run, given the fact that Prigozhin made a quite a strong statement about possible resistance by mercenaries staying with the MOD in Russia.
And is it possible to say, given everything that you've said, of course, how much of a hold Russia has in these countries through the work of Wagner?
Well, it feels in theory that the Wagner Group is indispensable to Russia, because if you think about since the annexation of Crimea, where Russia basically lost its global diplomatic standing, the Wagner Group began expanding operations, not just military operations, but also influence campaigns. Many of these have been conflated with Russia's growing economic, security, and diplomatic interests in the region. When you look at Wagner propaganda that is being promoted by local groups, a lot of it talks about the image of Putin or the image of Russia, irrespective of the war that's taking place in Ukraine and irrespective of how the Western nations are relating with Russia. So it is interesting to see how continued relations between the Wagner Group and Russia will enable a continuation of Russia's influence on the continent.
Beverly Ochieng from BBC Monitoring, thank you very much for giving that perspective from Nairobi.
A decision on a major election.
Oh, this is a big one. Good news. I think we're done with the Russia component of today, you know. The US knew about it. Big W from the Supreme Court. Okay.